So what does the picture look like for the Lakers as far as Julius Randle is concerned?
Well, the starting point is they have in the neighborhood, without Randle, let's say they renounce him. And I know they really like Thomas Bryant. Ivica Zubac is playing well. What we're going to do is we're going to start by assuming that they renounce everybody. So we can piecemeal put little pieces back, right? Mm-hmm. You could always put in Ivica Zubac at $1.5 million or Thomas Bryant at 1.4. But for now, just to get their max number, we're going to take all of them out. That means no Brook Lopez, KCP, Brewer, Fry, Isaiah Thomas, Ennis, Zubac, Bryant, and for now Randle for the moment, right? So everyone's gone. They have about $59.8 million to spend, which is basically enough to get Cousins, who is hurt and probably stays in New Orleans, and Paul George, right? So you've sacrificed all those names to get those two guys. It could be someone else. It could be someone like DeAndre, where you're paying him $30 million. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get to the max for LeBron James, he's $35 million. They're not quite there. And if you want to have a shot at Julius Randle, they're not quite there. So if they were to keep the Julius Randle cap hold and were to stretch out the contract of Luol Deng over 5 years, right? They're paying, basically killing their cap for $7.4 million for 5 straight years, which is a lot. Mm-hmm. They would have $58 million to spend with Randle. So it's about $2 million less if they don't stretch Deng, right? Mm-hmm. So if Deng's on their books, they have 58 or 59 rather, 59.8. So let's call it 60, right? Okay. To round up. So let's say they have 60 right there. They lose everybody. Here, they can keep Randle, stretch Deng, hurt your future when it comes to the math, but it may not impact the future when it comes to actual roster building. Maybe, might not. And then they would get to 58. So that's at a point where, yeah, you could, if you offered Paul George 29 and Cousins 29 instead of 30, but they have a chance to keep, you talk to them. And Randle and George have the same agent. So maybe there's some flexibility there. Maybe they split the difference, right? Mm-hmm. And again, that's Randle at 12.4, so they can always pay him up to the 18 that I'm theoretically saying that the Mavericks offer him. Mm-hmm. So let's say they have to pay him 18. We'll use that as the number. 12.4 is the only number you have to worry about when you're planning your math. So just stretching Deng, you might be able to get Paul George, Julius Randle, and one other max guy at $30 million. It would take a tiny bit of help from Paul George and Randle to work together. Mm-hmm. In the case of, it's really Paul George who has to give up the money because he can't lower his cap hold. So Paul George would have to come at 28, or this other free agent, if there was a second one, maybe they don't come at 30, maybe they both come at 29. So it's when you look at what the big three, when it was LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, they all gave up a tiny bit to make it work. And it's not out of bounds to think. I would never think someone gives up. Like if you said LeBron comes for $10 million, I'd say I can't assume that. If you say LeBron comes for $30 million, I'd say maybe. And if you say LeBron comes for 34 instead of 35, I'd say okay, fine. You'll shave off $1 million because he's able to roster build. He's able to have a better chance to win because of his generosity, so-called. He's still making a ton of money. So now I had also come up with an idea, and this was something I wrote about on Bleacher Report called extend and stretch, or reverse buyout. And the idea was they could give Luol Deng an extension beyond his current contract and then stretch out his contract over 11 years, right? But you'd have to pay him more. Let's go conservative and say they give him $6 million more to leave, but that they'll buy him out over a longer period of time, right? So if I crunch that real quick, that's going to be...
This is the equivalent of back of the napkin math here.
Right, so he's now $42.8 million, and we divide that by 11. Okay, so now, and I'm going to copy this so I don't lose it. So and there's questions as to whether this is legal or not. If it's something that I've discussed with a lot of executives, and they think it's a clever idea. And as long as Deng is getting some money, I know the players' union is very pro the concept.
Pro money for their players,
right?
So.
And he would have a chance. Luol Deng would to sign on with another team at the minimum and actually play basketball, perhaps. I don't think he's getting more than a minimum, but still, a couple $1 million would be a boon for him. So, if they did this technique that I'm talking about, and let's say it was at $6 million, it might be less, but now they're at about $62 million. with Randle, and they've done this reverse buyout. So that gets them back to where we started, even a little bit better. You have enough to pay 2 stars. You're still not quite there for LeBron, right? So how do you get there? And that's really the question. The answer is trading Luol Deng somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different story. So I'll talk about the trading Luol Deng in a minute. What's your thoughts so far on all that math that we did here?
It's a lot of numbers, but it makes sense as far as, you know, the key is that they just have to, if they want to keep Randle, just to make enough cap space to sign those other guys first, because they can go over the cap to re-sign Julius Randle, right? They have his bird rights.
Right, but it costs 12.4 to have that ability to pay him over the cap.
Of course. So that's going to be a calculation that the Lakers will have to make. And that's not all like entirely up to them, I guess, in essence, because if he does want to leave and he wants to, obviously they have a right of first refusal, but I guess there could be some value to them in letting him walk potentially. But, you know, when you have an opportunity, if you have an opportunity to acquire players like LeBron and Paul George, you kind of have to move heaven and earth to make it happen.